mother's right to life doesn't um, doesn't supersede or override like the person who it's living off of is right to not provide
Yeah.
like use their own body resources to
Yeah, yeah.
sustain that life form. So
That's
the
really
argument that
interesting.
she used was like, let's say you're in the hospital and you wake up after a coma, and there's this like famous, and the analogy she uses, this it's like a famous violinist, but that doesn't really matter. I don't know why she does it. So she's like, so there's this famous violinist who has this terrible disease, and because of the way the disease works and your blood types, the only person that that it can survive is by hooking them up to you and using your blood to keep them alive. So it's like you should have the right to not do that,
Yeah.
even though like it would be better, I guess, for you to make the choice to try to help keep this person alive. But it's like, but what it,
Yeah.
when do you draw the timeline for that? Like, is it appropriate for you to give them your livelihood and have to stay in this hospital bed for a few days? Do you draw the line at 9 months? What if they have to do that indefinitely? So it's just a really interesting argument where you prove, yeah, just because something's a human and has the right to life, it doesn't necessarily give them moral placement to override your free will. Like if you choose to not sustain it. So it's like it's almost different than if you're just choosing someone to murder, you're just choosing to not keep something alive who is, you know, needs you to survive.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
I
I've
thought,
never considered that.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. Um, and then the guy who argued anti-abortion was from this perspective of I'm going to concede that like abortion because of rape is fine because you had no willing part in it, but it's like the side that he argued was he coined this term uh
Nice.
like full or like it was like realizing life potential was his moral argument. So it's like, you know, when you kill someone, the reason why it's bad is because you're taking away the future life opportunities that they would have had otherwise, right? Like you're taking away their opportunities. And for every living person, for the most part, those are unknown. Like even outside of Laplace's demon, like you don't know all ends. Nobody knows the detailed outcome of their future.
Yeah.
So when you keep someone who's not born alive, like you are recognizing that you really have no idea what their life will be like or what the life of the mother will be like, and so that's super like so yeah, you're banking on the fact that you're trying to give this life form its best. Oh yeah.
Oh, nice shot. Wow.
No. Yeah, so it's kind of based on that argument. And the thing that I think is a really good counter to that argument is that for most part, the conservative position, there's no real like follow through on that position. Like you're arguing against abortion, but then there's no adoption of that child like up by the state or trying to make some kind of concerted effort to maximize their potential outcome for like a happy life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it would be one thing to say, okay, we're going to stop this abortion, you know, this child is going to be adopted by the state, you know, given free college tuition, and we're going to make sure that it lives, you know, a good quality life. But there's nothing really like that in place, other than just like general adoption, which, you know, statistics point that doesn't really work out well all the time. So is that
Yeah,
going to make sense?
yeah. I feel like, I mean, so it's kind of, in a way, that's part of the problem with this as like a topic of debate, is that it is very real, and like that's a, to me that's perfectly legitimate to be like, well, people who are proponents of this also are usually not proponents of like a strong state that takes care of children in need, you know.
Exactly. Right.
Um, but from a purely argument standpoint, I feel like, whoa, nice shot. Um, there's, I was thinking, like, that's not really the only bad thing about murdering someone, is that you deny their future. If you just waste somebody's time, you're denying their future, in a sense. Um, like, and people themselves, like, depending on what they choose to do, could be doing that to themselves, you know? I feel like that's kind of just a weak, like, denying a potential future. It's like that, it's all the time, you know? Companies lay off employees, but we don't, you know, in a humanistic way, we're concerned about the future of the employees that are, well, that are fired. But like, you see what I mean? Like that's such a nebulous, um, thing. And you're right that like, okay, so what do you plan to do? Like, what if, like, I guess would be my counter to that argument, is that, okay, say a mother, she's a single mother, she's got 10 kids, she's pregnant with her 11th, you know, they're poor as dirt, um, that kid is gonna grow up in poverty, um, maybe some of the other children have already had trouble with the law, like, what future do you have in store for that kid? Um, like, by aborting that potential child, are you really throwing away some grand potential future? Like,
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was making.
yeah,
Exactly. Right. Like, you know, yeah, like there's no program in place to make sure that some good life is going to be led.
and really, you're taking away from others that are alive by forcing that mother to, like, you're doing the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Let's get this out of here.
But yeah, it's such a more interesting debate or interesting topic than universal healthcare. Universal healthcare really is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's kind of a no-brainer,
it's not.
in my opinion.
I think most people around the world would think that's so funny that that's considered a topic for debate in America.
Yeah, well, and it's like even the arguments we read against it were just so stupid. Like just so incredibly easily countered. Like it's just like get that out of here.
Nice.
Get that out of here. Like just the argument of like you're infringing on people's freedoms. It's such a dog shit argument.
What freedom? The freedom to
Exactly.
die in the street?
Exactly. No, it's like people, like, if you live in a society, like, you aren't free. Like,
Yeah. And
like
we
you
all
have to,
live in a society. Like,
yeah, it's like, the whole point of living in a society is that you give up your freedoms for safety. Like, that's the whole point.
yeah, there's
It's
trade-offs.
it's the whole, it's the whole idea. Oh yeah, get on there. No, 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 no. Damn it.
Crossing
Like,
it.
you have to wear a seatbelt and you have to get a driver's license and you can't
Yeah.
buy alcohol if you're under 21 and there's a million billion other laws that we all follow or we get in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Well, yeah, at its core, I feel like that kind of libertarian argument is just like, well, you just don't want a government, and you don't want to live in a society, like, at least philosophically. And that's like, what's even the point of
Well, and it's just like
debating?
that's a position that should be only held by like the smartest, biggest, strongest, richest guys or people. Like,
Yeah,
you're not one of those guys. You sound like an idiot.
yeah,
Like
you're not gonna win from
the only person that should be vying for no government is like The Rock, and that's pretty much it. Or, yeah, somebody else who just, like, most of us are not the top dog. So that's why we created a gov. That's why we
that. Oh
created
no, did I
a
miss it?
society.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's like,
yeah. How
so
long is
then,
your paper have?
like 3 pages,
Oh,
nothing.
nice. This
Yeah,
game
and
is going
then
forever.
Jesus.
Sorry, go on, go on.
No, you're right. It's just like I feel like it should be like on the Genius test.
Oh my god.
Like, hey, can you win a game of Rocket League whilst talking about some of the most difficult subject matter? Um, well, yeah, and then just the easiest argument is like, if you want people to be free, like, they can't exercise their freedoms if they're, bedridden,
Yeah.
or if, so the whole argument is like, well, there's like natural things that happen that aren't fair, so, we can counter that. There we go. Oh!
Nice. Oh my god.
Just doink. Look at that, jumped over that guy. Boom.
Oh my god.
Winner.
That game.
Winner, winner. Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like I had a million saves.
You had so many. You had 3 epic saves. In fact.
Man, that was a fun one. I had a
Look, you got so many points from saved.
yeah.
just clearly. Oh, it's hilarious.
That was fun. I was just kind of like, when I was talking, I was like, alright, I'm just going to play defensive. So my brain can just kind of react to
Yeah.
what's happening.
But, yeah, that class. I should not have taken that class with all of the other classes I took.